This is the Astrology and Tarot Show with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. This is your psychic astrology for the week starting Monday, April 6. If you're listening on substack.com at the Astrology and Tarot Show, we give you timestamps for every sign. Your tarot this week can be decoded at jessicaadams.com. Aries, the Ace of Pentacles. Taurus, the Page of Cups. Gemini, the Sun. Cancer, the Nine of Wands. Leo, the Ten of Pentacles. Virgo, the Tower. Libra, the Ace of Wands. Scorpio, the Nine of Cups. Sagittarius, Justice. Capricorn, the Seven of Wands. Aquarius, the Three of Cups. And Pisces, the Hierophant. If you have Aries factors in your personal birth chart, you need to know that Mars enters Aries on April 9 in your sector of image, profile, portrait, and packaging, ahead of Mercury in Aries, the same place, on April 14, and a new moon in Aries on April 17. So this is a relaunch, or it's a relaunch of your relaunch. Roxy Music had a song called Remake, Remodel, which sums it up nicely. Aries, what is normal about the world of money or real estate will either strike you as extremely unpredictable now or far too loaded with questions about freedom. In order to spin a new life budget between now and the final week of April, you have to compromise with the revolution somewhere along the line. Now, in astrology, we've been talking about this for a long time. What's happening out there in the world of the Middle East, petrol and gas prices, and the impact on the economy is personal for you, Aries, and don't you know it? However, you have lived with this lack of predictability with your life budget since 2018. Between 2018 and 2026, Aries, you had a couple of full stop moments when you had to screech to a halt and rethink just about everything you knew about making the numbers add up. What's happening at the moment is the end of this cycle, and yet we have to be true to astrology and say it doesn't stop until it's really over, which is the final week of this month. Until then, there is still room for surprise, and the key with Uranus is it's neither negative nor positive. Actually, it's about being free. It's about being independent and breaking with the past in order to set sail for some new destination, which gives you a lot more room to move. What takes you there is not likely to be anything that you had planned or anticipated. But if you are able to step back from the situation and be objective about what is happening with the money, the house, the apartment, the business, and so on, you should be able to see that you are being given a lot more room to move than would otherwise have been the case. In fact, this cycle never happens unless you are risking some kind of situation where you would have been confined or trapped ongoing. Therefore, sometimes it does have to be sudden, and for some of you listening to this, it will be. In other cases, you have been making changes because you no longer want to be tied down or held back financially or with property. Therefore, what's happening is a bit like surfing a wave, which you understand will set you free. Yet, from the final week of April, life becomes an awful lot more predictable financially. Taurus. Well, Jupiter will offer his luck in connection with three areas of your life now. The first area is your siblings, cousins, and neighbours. And the second is your way with words, your communication. And the third area, where Jupiter is so lucky for you, is your travel. Short journeys in your own car or on planes, boats, scooters, or yachts. It's all about the short haul trip. This is the third house of your chart, and we don't see Jupiter there very often. He's only in there once every 12 years, and you have until June 30 to once again take opportunities which are being offered to you and stick to what has been a pretty optimistic growth period for you. In fact, I don't think you'll forget it in a hurry, Taurus. If your focus is more on your brother or sister, your cousin or neighbour, then the rule with this cycle is that when you see a solution or an opportunity, you do take it and follow through. Of course, Jupiter can sometimes happen to you while you're trying to do other things. So what's going on at the moment is maybe an act of fate, a twist of fate. Maybe it's the universe lining something up for you without you having to do very much at all. Things just seem to fall into place for you. If there have been any issues for you with your car, public transport, or domestic flights, getting from A to B, what's likely to happen this week is that you will see something presenting a silver lining to you, even though there is currently worldwide a cloud over petrol and gas. So you stand to gain from this cycle. In fact, if you have anything in Gemini and your birth chart Taurus, what's happening will be personal for you and it will involve an alternative way of getting around. It may be that you are being offered free public transport, or alternatively, by the time you get to June, the last thing you ever expected to find yourself doing will be the first thing that you try. Gemini. Well, this Virgo South Node cycle in your chart could give you flashbacks to the family as it was, or the household as it was 18 or 19 years ago, with a close relative or somebody who then shared your house or apartment. It can give you deja vu. The Virgo South Node moves backwards through the signs, never forwards, which is why it's very difficult traditionally to try and do anything differently or new, no matter if your concern is a relative, your house or apartment, the family home, or the household that you share. At the moment, you need to know that the cycle stops in the final week of July. Until then, it may in fact be circular for you, and you may feel as if you've seen it all before. If you have anything in Cancer in your birth chart, you do stand to gain, even though the situation is a rewind or a revolving door, because there is a solution here or an opportunity for you until June 30. If you don't have Cancer factors or you just don't know about your birth chart, you can still rest assured that what is happening will stop once July draws to a close. In fact, what is going on, Gemini, with the family or the household is laying the foundations for the biggest and best, which begins halfway through 2027 when Jupiter goes into Virgo and will not stop until halfway through 2028. Cancer. This Neptune and Aries cycle in your career, academic career, and unpaid work sector will deliver cloudy vision. In fact, that's what Neptune is known for in astrology. So you need to be clear about the nature of the connection, the project, or the role this week. Life since January, when Neptune began this cycle, has become more confused or confusing than usual, because clear vision is usually the first thing to go. If in doubt, you can ask an objective outsider for his or her view of the situation, as they may be able to see what you are having difficulty making out or grasping. If there is any muddle here, flotsam and jetsam, it's time to contain it. Neptune cycles don't fix themselves, and you may need to draw a firm line in the sand, Cancer, or draw boundaries. Maybe you need to reinforce boundaries with an employer, for example, or a professor, with somebody who's involved with your unpaid work. There are other things going on too. This is a triple cycle for you. You don't just have Neptune in your zone of success, you also have Saturn there, and you have Chiron there as well. So it might be that this week you feel that you have to come up with some kind of super strategy to cope with everything, or you decide that you're going to compartmentalize your life so that you have one approach, two approaches, three approaches that you put on a kind of rotation or roster. In any case, the trick with the Neptune transit is awareness. If you realize that you are being given something here that is so hard to see or make out or keeps changing every time you look at it, then it is time to put in an anchor and find out where the red and yellow flags are on the shore. Leo. Neptune in Aries in your solar ninth house blurs the lines with foreigners abroad or at home. Some of these foreigners may be involved with part of the World Wide Web for you, publishing, or academia. If a certain person infiltrates your space to the point where there are no boundaries, then you need to pull up the drawbridge and fill the moat. Somebody that is in your space or in your zone from a different culture, nationality, or country is clearly showing up in your horoscope. And consequently, you have to be aware of the need to keep things contained and controlled. This isn't the only cycle that you're experiencing in the ninth house of foreigners and foreign countries. You also have Saturn there, so there is a waiting game or a test of patience. And you have Chiron there, so there is an experiment as well. All in all, even if this is just somebody from a different nationality or culture in your town, you are having to deal with different accent, different language, and different way of seeing the world. The trick this week is to remember that Neptune can be contained. You just have to be aware of the potential for confusion, and you have to find something or somebody that will ground you. Virgo. This Pluto in Aquarius cycle is really kicking in this week, and it will continue to affect your health and well-being, your lifestyle, your workload, and your daily routine. There is a long, slow process of transformation now taking place with all of that. So it's smart to commit to regular medical checkups and to jump on any symptoms, as this cycle runs for many years, and some issues with mind, body, or spirit may develop slowly. You are sensible about your mental and physical health if you are true to your sign. It takes a great deal to derail a true Virgo from that, but this cycle still requires a bit more care. You will be empowered by experts, cures, and solutions which appeal to your willpower, and solutions which hand you back control when you use self-control. That's the rule with the Pluto cycle in astrology. In fact, to go through Pluto in Aquarius in your solar sixth house of well-being, at the same time that you have the South Node in Virgo, your own sign, and your natal sixth house of well-being, is a double whammy. So what is this sixth house of yours, and why does it matter? Well, you were born with the sun there for a start. So you become well known throughout your life for understanding the way that you work and the way that you do your work in the context of how you are physically. This can lead some Virgo people into all sorts of interesting areas for experimentation, no matter if you would call yourself healthy or definitely not. But when it comes down to it, this week and this year as a whole is all about understanding that if you are going to make a change to the way things run, then you have to use iron self-discipline, which is what Pluto is all about. It's highly likely that there is something or someone that you feel has the upper hand in your situation. If that is the case, then you need to figure out what to do about that and push back. Libra. Try to keep your feet on the ground with this Neptune in Aries cycle this week. The partnership may be personal, professional, or platonic, but the two of you are involved in what is basically a holiday from reality. The partner could be any sort at all, as I've mentioned, but it's really common to find yourself without boundaries, with blurred lines, and with an endlessly shifting horizon. It's so easy to lose sight of what's real and what's steady and there, with him or her or through them. And yet at the same time, in astrology, Neptune cycles are managed with awareness, so therefore you have to find your own way to keep it real and to remain grounded. Sometimes you just have to draw the line with him or her so that there is no more line crossing to be done. And sometimes you have to be just as firm with yourself as you may be the person who has lost sight of the boundaries. This is a triple cycle. You also have Saturn in Aries in your seventh house of partners of all kinds. Therefore, you know very well that there is a test of patience or a waiting game. That goes on for some time, so you do need a plan. You also have Chiron in Aries on and off all year, so we could also say that there is an experiment taking place with or through this person. Stepping back from the situation is a really good idea. Sometimes you need to talk to somebody who's not a Libran so that they can give you their perspective on him and her, or him or her, and you can figure things out from there more easily and more clearly. Scorpio. This triple Aries cycle is about your part-time or full-time job, And if you are not in the workforce, it is about your duties at home or the rituals that you have on a daily basis. It can be about study, for example. It also covers your physical and mental health, your lifestyle and well-being. You are now being offered a vacation from reality, which is what Neptune does. You have Neptune in Aries in your solar sixth house, which dominates the week. At the moment, you are steering your way through all of this for the first time, as this is a really new cycle. There may be a loss of boundaries with a colleague, client, boss, customer, or other workplace connection, or at university or college, no boundaries with a professor or a classmate. If you are in unpaid employment or you are volunteering, you may also find that the line keeps moving and the goalposts keep changing every time you look at them. With a little bit of care and finesse, you can right some wrongs this week. Even if things have not got that far yet, you could see the potential for muddle and getting quick to make sure that he, she, or they understand this far and no further. Sagittarius. The seventh house, which is where your big change cycle begins at the end of April, is about your partner of any kind, and this may be personal, platonic, or professional. For the first time in your adult life, you have Uranus, which is always a revolution, in your seventh house, and it begins with a bang at the end of April, with more events by June. So you may already be aware of this, as this cycle made a brief appearance last year in 2025. But whatever is happening, the basic rule with this cycle is to understand it is about Independence Day for you and for he or she. In fact, you can't really have Independence Day by yourself on this cycle. Everybody has to be set free, and that means a break with the past. The more free that you already are with your partner of any kind, the less dramatic that this cycle will be. But if you have reached a point in, say, a marriage or a work partnership where one or both of you is feeling very much restricted, you are likely to find that this cycle pulls the rug on some level. This means catapulting you, he or she, into a totally different way of operating, one in which there is so much more space and room to move. All of this is bubbling under this week, but you won't really see any action until you get to the end of April and again in May, June. Capricorn. Well, this Jupiter in Cancer cycle, which is all about luck, expansion, hope for the future and growth, is with you in your sector of partners until June 30. And the partnership could be of any sort at all. For some of you, it's going to be about work. In other cases, it's about your marriage, or you are looking at a platonic double act, pair, or couple. Whatever is happening with this other person is meant to be, and in some ways, you have been deliberately nurturing it or cultivating it since last year. There is balance here. In fact, this transit, which is in your seventh house, is all about the scales. Therefore, even though you and he or you or she are so different, there is huge potential here for a double act or a balancing act, which will enable you to have more and do more. So take the opportunities and the solutions this week and ongoing until June 30. They don't last forever, but it's also true that on a Jupiter cycle, whatever you create will be there 12 years from now, coming right back to you. Aquarius. You still appear to be caught up with karma involving the family, the household, or a partner, and the issue is about money, a house, apartment, or business. The karma stops in the final week of July. The South Node in Virgo is in your 8th house of joint finance and real estate until the final week of July. And the 8th house is all about complicated relationships with, for example, a parent, a sibling, a husband or wife. And it's very much about the ties that bind emotionally with money or real estate, possessions, or other issues. It is about the in-depth, complex side of karma. So 18 or 19 years ago, you set something up, Aquarius, or something was set up around you that never closed. That is why you are in a revolving door situation until the final week of July, and you're very much feeling it this week. No matter what you say and do to make things different, you find that other people go through the motions or repeat their lines. There is method in this, though, because according to astrology, whenever this happens, you have to change on the inside. And changing on the inside makes you a better person. It also makes you a more contented person. In any case, the whole financial or real estate story will no longer be revolving and rotating in just a few months. Pisces. Well, being ruled by Neptune, you do tend to drift into situations where the lines in the sand keep disappearing. And that's now the case with money, business, real estate, charity, or valuables, as your ruling planet Neptune is in the sign of Aries in your solar second house, which rules everything that you own, earn, or owe. It is important this week to work out where the lines became crossed or where they began to disappear or dissolve. If you are both or all going into territory which is permanently confused, you know what not to do. And that's partly because you are a Pisces. You have come across this before in other areas of your life, where, for example, the boundaries have become blurred with an accountant and a relationship, or a business matter which should be about numbers and a partner. It happens in all sorts of ways, but it's pretty easy to see what is going on. This Neptune transit will go for many years, so it's good that you're aware of it this week as you are next year too. Chiron and Saturn are also in this zone of your chart, so quite clearly, this house, this apartment, or this sum of money is so much more than just a lot of numbers to you. In fact, you are also being asked to take a test of patience and see this through into 2028. And when I say this, I could be talking about a house, apartment, or real estate commitment, or a business or income decision that you're making. The key to Neptune transits is to understand that it is up to you to contain and control what is going on, and also that you need to be pretty persistent because you could put in boundaries this week with somebody or something and then find that you have to reinforce them next week and the week after. Try and come up with something that has a fairly good reputation for containing and controlling either the person, the organisation, or the situation. Other people before you would have tried it and tested it, and it would be well trusted. That's all for this week, and I'll catch up with you next week. Thanks for listening.